The Dallas housing market is contending with its biggest inventory explosion in decades. The supply on the market is an absolute deluge, and as a result, home values are now dropping across DFW, and they could actually drop by a lot over the next year, depending on where you are. In this video, I'm going to give you all the data on the Dallas-Fort Worth housing market so you can make a more informed home buying and investment decision. So first things first, let's talk about this inventory. There's now 29,000 homes on the DFW housing market. This inventory is now 70% above the long-term average and is at the highest level in a decade, signaling excess supply on the market and more favorable conditions for buyers. As a result, home value data from Zillow is showing that prices have corrected 2.8% in DFW over the last 12 months, May 2024 to 2025. Additionally, on a month-over-month basis, seasonally adjusted values corrected by 0.65%, which annualizes to 7.8% in a year. So this correction in DFW is definitely gaining steam, and it's great news for home buyers in the Dallas area who've been waiting the last 3 or 4 years to buy a house. You are finally getting those cheaper prices. You're finally getting that affordability. And I think these values are going to continue to drop in Dallas over the next year. And later in this video, I'm actually going to give you my forecast for the DFW housing market and break it down county by county and zip code by zip code. For instance, check out this 4-bed, 2-bath house south of downtown Dallas. It's on the market for $375,000 as a 2024 new build. Wow, $175 a foot to be in an urban location on a pretty nice looking new build property in Dallas. Look at that. Seems like the type of house I would actually live in. Well, the builder slash seller originally listed here at $445 in May 2024 and has had to cut that price down by $70,000 over the last year, and the house is still sitting. And then if you actually go up to north of Dallas into Prosper and Celina, you can see there's just inventory everywhere, folks. Look at how many homes are for sale in this small area. A lot of newer build houses with big price cuts. But an important thing to understand about Dallas's housing market is that it's very fragmented. There's a lot of different bifurcation in this market. Certain areas are going down and going down hard. Other areas are showing more stability. If you want to understand the market, you got to go down to your neighborhood. You got to go down to your zip code. Because when I look at the zip code map of Dallas, I'm just seeing huge differences. You know, some areas sellers are freaking out. Other areas, there's still actually pockets of bidding wars. And what I'm going to do for you right now is go into the zip code level data. So you can see kind of the heat map of how DFW's housing market is faring in terms of demand, supply, and prices. So let's dig into that right now so you as a buyer or investor can make a more educated decision if you're looking to buy over the next year. And we're here on Reventure app, everyone. This is the tool that I've been using so far in this program. We have housing market data for almost every city in America. And if we just type in Dallas into the search bar, we can pull up the zip code level home value growth. So what we're looking at now is the year-over-year home value growth. And what you can see just around downtown Dallas is there's big differences. Like if you go south and east of downtown Dallas, values are down 5% year over year. But if you go north to University Park, they're up 4% year over year. So look at these local differences. These local neighborhoods are only maybe 5, 6, 7 miles away, but there's huge differences between them. These differences expand as we move further out on the Dallas-Fort Worth home price map. Again, the areas in red have better growth year over year. The areas in blue have bigger declines year over year. But the metric I want you guys to really pay attention to is the monthly home value growth. And the reason I want you to look at the monthly home value growth is that's giving you the real-time data on the trends in the market. So when you look at year over year, that's helpful, but it's kind of telling you a lot about what happened 6 to 12 months ago. The month over month tells you about what's happening literally right now. So if we zoom back in, you know, there's some zip codes here near downtown Dallas that are down 2% in a month on a seasonally adjusted basis. Now, 2% in a month, if you were to continue that throughout an entire year, it would be 24% in a year. And you can see in the case of this neighborhood to the east of downtown Dallas, minus 2% in a month. That's the biggest drop we've seen in seasonally adjusted terms since 2011. So when you see that monthly drop get to say 1% in a month or close to 1% in a month, that's telling you the downturn's picking up steam. A drop of maybe 0.8% in a month like in Little Elm, that is around 10% in a year if that were to continue. So this heat map of home value growth month over month is going to really just tell you in real time the markets that are going up or down the most right now. And one point I just want to clarify about that data on the monthly growth is that it is seasonally adjusted. So, the real estate market's seasonal. Values tend to go up and down on a nominal basis at different points during the year. But this data that's available on Reventure app is sourced from Zillow, and it's a seasonally adjusted data point, already taking into account the seasonal variations in the market. So that's a data point you can trust in terms of telling you what's going on in real time. And I just want to take a second to appreciate, how far we've come in a market like Dallas, where 2 or 3 years ago, this market was still really hot. There were still bidding wars. It seemed to some like prices would never drop, but we at Reventure app saw it coming. Our home price forecast saw these declines in Dallas coming about a year and a half ago, actually, is when we started picking up on this data. Let's check this out, everyone. On this graph, we are looking at the Reventure home price forecast score in Dallas. Now, this is a score from 0 to 100. And the closer it is to 100, the more of a seller's market. The closer it is to 0, the more of a buyer's market. And this is a forward-looking score. So you can see back in May 2023, we had a score of a 49, which said 2 years ago we said it was a balanced market. But then last year, the score dipped to a 41, which was starting to tell you that values were going to drop in the future. Now, a score of 41 on Reventure app corresponds to about a 2.4% decline in values forecast over the next year. Now, sure enough, values went down 2.8%. So we saw that initial correction coming here at Reventure app. But what I'm about to show you next is, a sign of that this correction could get even bigger, because our home price forecast out of 100 just dropped down to 29 in May 2025. Now at 29, folks, that's really starting to get low. That's saying there's lots of supply, there's lots of price cuts, homes are sitting on the market, and those trends are going to tell you that values are more likely to drop in the future. And it's actually one of our biggest downward forecasts of any metro area in America. There's only a handful of metros where we think prices are going to drop more than Dallas. You guys can access them if you go to Reventure app after this video. But I think a key question for a lot of you out there, if you're a prospective buyer and you see values are dropping and you see more listings and you say that's good, that's good. But when do I buy? When is it going to be a good time to buy in Dallas? When do I know that the market is maybe going to stop going down or is going to be at like a valuation that's more fairly priced? And that has to do more with the fundamentals of the market. How high are home prices relative to incomes? How high are home prices relative to rents? And the issue in Dallas, and why I think values are going to drop maybe for an extended period of time, is because the market became very overvalued during the pandemic. The prices of the homes went up much faster than the local incomes. And the reason that happened was because there was a huge influx of people from New York and California moving to Dallas during the pandemic that bid up the prices due to their higher incomes. But now that migration has dropped. Now the home sales have dropped. So what you're seeing in DFW now is that the local home buyer who's maybe lived in Dallas and Fort Worth and Collin County for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they're now having to step in and support the market. And quite simply, they just can't afford the current price points at current mortgage rates. And so that's creating a demand vacuum. It's causing the inventory to go up. So I want you to take a look at this, everyone. The home value to income ratio in Dallas today is 4.1. Typical value of $377,000 divided by a median income of $89,000. Now you can see the long-term average home value to income ratio is 3.4. So Dallas was like actually really affordable, a cheap metro for most of the last 20 years. It was really affordable. And then it was just really during the pandemic that it got really expensive. You can see the affordability is improving, but we're still above this long-term average line, which means that Dallas's housing market is overvalued. And if you want to find out how overvalued Dallas's housing market is, you can go to Reventure app and click the data point overvaluation rate. This is a data point that tells you how over or undervalued home values are in most cities, metros, counties, and zip codes in America. What's great about this overvaluation data is we have it down to the zip code level. So you could see just how overvalued prices are in your zip code and get a beat on, maybe how much values could drop in the future, or maybe how much lower you should offer on a house if you're looking at buying a house, or if you see that, a price has been cut substantially already, compare it to the overvaluation rate to see if it's been cut enough. This metric is going to really help you as a buyer better understand your local market. I just picked on a area in Dallas, Garland, Texas. You can see it's 47% overvalued here in Garland. When you see that level of overvaluation, it's telling you be careful, riskier. What you really want to do, folks, is you want to see this get closer to undervalued. So if you're a buyer today, waiting on the sidelines, trying to decide if it's going to be a good time to buy, or how much to offer, you're going to want to see it get closer to that undervalued range. This is near Valley Ranch in Las Colinas. You could see it was 24% overvalued in 2022. Now we're down to 10% overvalued. We're still a bit overvalued, but we're getting closer to that long-term norm. So this is a market that might not go down as much in the future. And so the way to do it, folks, is if you're a prospective buyer trying to understand the market, is look at that overvaluation metric. Look at the percentage forecast for how much we think prices are going to go down in the next year. Those are two key data points, imperative data points for you to understand before you make a home purchase. We've had thousands of users on Reventure app use this data to actually save a lot of money on their home purchase. In fact, we just had someone leave a review on our mobile app and saying that the app is unbelievable. They followed all the variables for the zip code they were looking to buy, and they were able to negotiate a price indicative of the information that was provided by the app, and that they actually used the same data during negotiations and gave them a distinct advantage. They're going to use it again for sure. So we're having lots of users find huge success using Reventure app in this market. If you live in DFW or any other part of Texas, go to www.reventure.app right now and sign up for our premium plan. The cost is $39 a month, which is ultimately a small percentage of how much you can save using this tool. This is really going to help you as a buyer or investor make a more informed and secure financial decision in 2025 and into 2026.